guys, PLB here and welcome back for another video. Happy New Year, by the way. I know I'm very late. Alright, so it's been a while that we haven't done a good old tutorial inside FL Studio, so I figured today would be the perfect day for this to start the year correctly. And for that, I'm going to show you 5 tips that I do in all of my build-ups. Let's go. It's currently a remix for Norco's last song called Disappearing Now. To give you an idea, this is the build-up right now. It's a nice build-up, but it misses some energy, it misses some build-up magic to really get the hype going. So let's show you the 5 tips, and we're gonna start with number 1, which is automation. I really like to do automations on the build-up to help to give it more energy. So I do 3 things. I automate the low-end cut, I automate the volume, and I automate the stereo separation. So the first thing I start with in automations is to automate the low end, to basically remove the bass as it goes up to the build-up. So if I bring this one here and play it during the build-up, you'll see that it removes the low end more and more and more up to the drop and then brings it back again. So if we enable it, it sounds like this. You can't really hear the bass at the end of the build-up, and then it comes back and it's way more powerful at the impact of the drop. Then I do the same for the stereo separation, which basically makes the build-up feels more mono, so that same again, the idea when the drop hits, it's gonna go back to stereo, which is gonna give it more impact. You can see it here. It starts to merge a little bit more. So it really makes it feel like more thinner at the end of the build-up, just at the end, and then super big on the drop. That's basically the idea. And then the last thing I do is a volume automation. And in this case, I just drop the volume a little bit, just a tiny bit at the end of the build-up, just so that it really feels more powerful and a bit louder on the drop. And just with those 3 things, we already have a drop that feels a bit more impactful to my ears. Alright, so for tip number 2, another thing that I just learned recently is that one snare roll isn't gonna cut it. For some reason, it's not gonna give enough energy, and I noticed that if I was just using one, it was not enough. So my point here is to not hesitate to layer a few more snare rolls just to bring some more energy. So for example here, I only have one. But it wasn't enough, so I decided to add this one here. And at the second part of the build-up, you can see it brings something new, and it brings, again, more energy to the build-up. And now you start to get hype. Alright, and then the other thing that I do is to pitch the snare rolls. In this case, the one that I chose from Kashmir is a good one, so it is already automated, but I will show you how to do it if it wasn't automated. Alright, so I just made a quick snare roll, very basic, just to show you. That sounds like this for now. And basically what you want to do is, well, first add another line here, double click this, pitch, put it to 12, and then create automation clip. And basically you're gonna raise it here by doing this. And you have your pitch automation on your snare roll. Alright, so now that we have a few more things that works better in our build-ups, now I want to add more tension. And for this, I have 2 solutions. First, you can add more risers and more uplifters. I find that as a beginner, you often are a bit scared, so you don't want to add too much, but you still need to add some. And in my case, I was using maybe just one, which definitely isn't enough. I think that the only one that I had was this one over here. But this is definitely not enough. So I went ahead and got a few more risers. And a few more sweeps. So this is definitely going to help you to raise a little bit the tension and get the hype going on your build-up. Obviously, be careful with it. Don't put too much, like don't put 10 of them. And if you put like 3 or 4, something like this, just be sure to level volume them and not put them too loud in your mix, because as a beginner, I find it's very easy to want to hear stuff too much than it should be. So I'd say remove 2 or 3 dBs of what you would actually put it, and I think it'll sit properly in the mix. Now, another thing to add tension that I learned from Mesto actually is to repeat the same note to add tension. You can hear it in his remix of Without You. I'm not sorry that I've changed. You can see that he adds this tension note, which is probably the root note of his songs, and I think it works really well. So I went ahead and decided to do this for my build-up here for the Nurko remix. It is this one over here, and I basically chose to repeat the lead sound and the lead melody, but to chop off the melody and repeat the note a bunch like a snare roll. It sounds like this. And in the mix, in the song, it sounds like this. You can just hear it a little bit. Which is also going to lead us to tip number 4, which is to tease the drop melody. So this one is technically pretty easy. You just take your drop melody and put it in the build-up, and do one thing is to put an EQ to filter it and slowly open it up during the build-up to tease the melody a little bit. In this particular case of the Nurko remix, I didn't use the drop melody. As I told you before, I used the tension note, but I also filtered it up. It's already built in into this stem here, but you can hear that it opens up a little bit. Like super filtered, and then slowly opens up. Another thing that I like to do in top of taking my drop melody to tease it with an EQ is to actually change the lead sounds. I'm gonna use, for example, just a piano sound or another softer, like plucks and saws sounds, softer than the ones that I used in the drop, just to tease it a bit differently in the build-up and not give it all everything, like not give it all up. Not give it all up? Something like that. Like not to give away the melody. I'll show you an example right now in one of my upcoming songs. Alright, so now for the last tip. Basically, it's already done there, but it's a tip that I pretty much do all the time that I think works really great, is to play with the dynamics contrast. And for this, the best way to do that is basically to cut everything 1 bar before the drop. In this case, it's pretty empty, so let's add some tom fills. So I found these. And I also added those 2 little reverse crash and reverse kick to add like suction effect kind of thing. And now with everything, it should sound like this. And that's it. We have now a build-up with a lot of energy, and that works and gets you hyped for the drop. Here's the final result. Don't recognize myself.